Everybody, welcome to this week's Star Report. This is Jason here at New Dimensions, Crystals, and Reiki in downtown Brenham, Texas. It is July the 19th, 2023, and this week's Star Report is almost as intense as last week's. As usual, we're going to jump right into the solar weather, and then we'll get into how Monday went for everybody. Let's get right into it. So the sun has been very active over the last week. Any of you who are paying attention or being very sensitive to this or watch this report are probably noticing that the sun has been doing some odd things, or that you've been feeling a little bit triggered by that. And so the sun with its solar flaring has been causing a lot of proton storms, right? And so that's just when something erupts and is rather large. And so there were several large eruptions, but they're not Earth facing. That still charges the plasma that sort of comes through and hits us at our polar regions, the North Pole and South Pole. And sends electricity or protons into the atmosphere and down into the planet. So we've been having a lot of what they call proton storms that have been happening. Those were caused and or accompanying the flaring, the solar flaring. And those solar flares have ejected some coronal mass ejections, which is when the plasma actually flies off the sun, not just a flash across the sun, and comes towards us. I guess it doesn't always have to come towards us. These are coming towards us. One of those, not necessarily large enough to be super intense. I think it's an M class, like a lower M class. Should be hitting us sometime today, into the evening, maybe, if it's for some odd reason slower than normal. Should be here tomorrow. But definitely the energy and the connection with the sun has already hit us. So now we're just waiting for the material that was ejected from the sun to hit us. So that should be something to sort of pay attention to. There is another one, CME, that is heading our way. Not quite sure. It might be a glancing blow, might miss us, but if it does hit us, it'll be probably, we're in Wednesday, so it should be Friday, Saturday that it should hit. Nonetheless, all of those things should be triggering the energies and emotions that the sun triggers for humans on the planet, and the way that we sort of use it. And so just a reminder of that stuff, the stuff that gets affected when the sun is this active and bursting out energy at us above the normal range. Our tech starts to get a little jacked up, and that could either be GPS, large systems, like if you're into gaming and you have all of those systems where you're back and forth talking to other people. Social medias will be disrupted. If you have older wiring in your houses and stuff like that, electrical fires usually go on the uptick during this kind of stuff, right? And that's just because of a surge, not necessarily for anything being wrong with your equipment, but that it gets extra energy that it's not meant to have. So that could happen. And then internet glitches, and that's usually in the form of slowing down, right? So even if you have like these super fast speeds, it'll be like a processing thing, like you'll have that little spiral and it'll go a little longer than it usually does, and pictures will load slower during these kinds of times. And so that's what they call internet glitches. Human stuff, what's going to happen to your physical body while all of this extra solar activity is happening. Heart rate fluctuations, right? So if you have any kind of heart rate issues, you'll sort of notice that goes. Blood pressure changes. This could even, usually I think it's in the form of increased blood pressure, but this could be, a decrease in blood pressure. It's just a change. If you are somebody who is at cardiac or stroke risk, the risk intensifies, right? It's not necessarily going to cause one of those things, but it's just something to sort of be aware of, right? But not too aware. We know what we focus on. Sometimes we attract, right? So don't take these as these are going to happen to you. Take these as possibilities to keep in the Rolodex if something starts to shift in yourself, that you're like, oh, wait a second, extra solar activity, maybe this is a thing. Take your precautions that you normally would. Any people who have like autoimmune disorders, like lupus or something like that, chronic arthritis, all those kinds of things might flare up and be more intense. Migraines and seizures, right? So if you're an epileptic or you get regular migraines, the likelihood for those is increased during solar activity like this. Is a lot of stuff, right? If you got psychological issues, bipolar, do they call it disorder? These days, any kind of that, you might have episodes of mania or depression that sort of get triggered by the solar stuff. Cognitive decrease, just the ability to process information, right? And with the intensity of how information sort of shifts through social media, metaphysical circles, what they call truther circles, mainstream media, all of that information is a lot of information, and your ability to process it goes down when these solar flares go up, right? And so that could trigger feelings of disorientation if you are older and you already have some cognitive decline. It might feel like a worse day of that kind of stuff, like forgetting words and stuff like that. And then just in general, you'll be emotionally on edge, and sometimes they call it instability, right? So you might be triggered to extremes. Usually, the one we get triggered to is anger, right? So just sort of take a couple breaths, maybe use some breath work that I could teach you all about if you sign up at newdimensionscrystals.com. Use some breath work to sort of regulate your hair trigger if all this stuff's messing with you. And then stuff that's sort of happening to the planet when the sun's doing these stuff is increase in the jet stream, right? So the wind that sort of goes around the planet, those things could speed up. Higher temps. We're down here in Texas, so it's already 103, 104. Please don't get any hotter, but just even if it doesn't get thermometer hotter, it might feel more intense. You might be feeling the heat as more oppressive or sapping more of your energy. Stronger storms, right? So thunderstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes intensify, right? And that's mostly due to the solar activity, not to the heating necessarily of the planet by man-made stuff, right? So, and then seismic activity, right? So if you're around places where earthquakes can be a problem or are just a regular occurrence, they could intensify or uptick in regularity. So the sun's doing a lot of stuff. That's a lot of things that could be happening to you. They don't have to happen to you. Like I said, this is just a list to be aware of and why I talk about the solar weather. I think it's probably more controlling because the star is closer than the planets, except for the planets that are closer, whatever. You know what I mean? It's more regularly interacting with us than the planets are and has a stronger electrical connection to us. Brings us to Wednesday today, which is July the 19th. How's everybody feeling after Monday's big old shifts of the nodes shifting into Aries and Libra, I believe? The new moon, the master day, all this fun stuff that was happening on that. Monday was pretty intense. You could definitely feel it, right? You were either moving slower or feeling different, right? And not necessarily different as in an off feeling, but just different, like something's changed, right? Maybe it's the hue of everything. Maybe your eyes sort of felt like there was a different filter. Maybe you just sort of felt like you were going through the motions, like you didn't get enough sleep. Maybe you didn't get some sleep from that. And so you could be sleep deprived, but it was just sort of something in the rhythm of the way the world was interacting was different and will remain different for a while all these energies sort of ramp up or move through, right? That triggers a lot of things, right? We're entering a 20-year period of change, right? So we left behind a 20-year period. Now we're doing that new period, right? And so last week, if you don't remember, that was, if you're just seeing this and you don't watch me all the time, that was 2004 to 2006 was the last time we had this energy, this nodal shift, right? So everything since 2004 sort of came to a head on Monday. Fun times. Especially if you had a really intense or a lot of change, or you grew up during that time, or you started your professional career during that time, right? And now you're a generation into it and you've got kids, maybe even grandkids. There's a lot of shifts that happened since that last time. So today, the energy of Mars is really sort of helping power you through, right? So you might feel a little bit more energized today, even with all the solar activity, right? That still is extra energy, even though it might be sort of throwing you off. When you know what's throwing you off, you can use it and then harness that extra energy. The Mars is sort of helping you power through, and it's also giving you that feeling that it's all up to you, right? So all this shift that happened on Monday, right, is really sort of taking hold or taking control, right? That is no longer you'll do this when somebody else does that, or if something this would just happen, then you could do this, right? This is really um, feeling that it's all up to you. It's about self-reliance. Um, and so be easy on yourself. Like that was a big shift, and there's 20 years to sort of put this new stuff into motion. Don't procrastinate, even though it just gave you 20 years to do so. This energy also, while you're being nice to yourself, it doesn't necessarily mean that others in your life have malice or are causing you intentional failure, right? So don't always like, you're the reason that I've never done whatever, and start to use that interaction, right? The sun could trigger you to anger about, oh, these people have been in my way, these family members, these work partners, work, what do you go? Colleagues, there we go. When you work for somebody, it's like, what is it called when you work with somebody? Cognitive decline. Thanks, son. Yeah, so that's what's happening with that. But the thing that this energy sort of going to help you with, or what you should sort of focus on, is choosing you over them anyway, right? So it's not as punishment, but if it's like, oh, I need to spend an extra 30 minutes at work or whatever, but oh, I don't know how they're going to react when I get home. And so maybe that's limiting you. Maybe you could get some more work done. Maybe you could get some more abundance for the family or yourself. And you've been limiting that. Now it's really time to choose yourself over that. And so good luck with that. That should be fun. And that's just Wednesday. Tomorrow, Thursday, that solar flare impact should be lighting us up. Right. And so when that hits a planet, whether that's today or in a tomorrow, right, that energy sort of hits the planet and then energizes it for a bit. Usually it's only a couple of hours, but sometimes when you have a couple hours of fun, it energizes you for a couple of weeks, right? So when the solar energy hits us like that, sometimes it can give us that jolt that we need to move us forward. Yeah, that energy on Thursday is really going to be revelatory of, what are you made of? It could even be like triggering you to awakenness, right? So it's kind of like you're sort of waking up and then you get a phone call and like, oh my gosh, I'm late for work, and that sort of jolt to like, there's things to do and I know how to do them and I must get to it. You might be feeling that sort of anxiousness or that exhilaration on Thursday when that solar flare hits. Friday, I would say nothing's happening, but all that energy is residual. Saturday, the 22nd, is going to be Pluto, which is currently in retrograde, is closest to the Earth all month, right? And so closest to the Earth all month. Pluto's really about cleaning out old emotional wounds, right? So all of this stuff that's happening when Pluto's closer, right? Those might be more intense while that's happening, while Pluto's closest. And that's also unifying your shadow self with your light self, right? And that's just hidden talents and or things that you don't like about yourself. Maybe shameful times in your period where you were duped or you were acting less of yourself and your own interests, right? That's sometimes the shadow, right? So sometimes it's just alignment. Those shadow things, those shadow moments, those whatever limiting points of view you had about yourself were actually triggering or building you into this person. And so you can sort of unify that with the light. And when you have nothing to fear or you've made peace with your shadows, then that really sort of gives you that self-empowerment where you're not really like worried about somebody finding something out. Or if they do, you're not worried about what it means because you're not, A, you're not that person anymore, or B, that's what made you who you are. And if they like you now, then who cares what they know about your past? Yada, yada, yada. So on and so forth. Also, the 22nd, the probably more intense thing that's happening, more intense, Jason, really? Yes, is Venus is going retrograde. And so Venus is really about love and finances or wealth. And so when it goes in retrograde, that's really about focusing on that, right? And making those things new, working on it, adjusting. So some of these old energies could remind you of how badass you used to be, right? So, or that you really are, right? And so this could be you have been this awesome earlier in your life, or these things, these shadows that have been happening to you have really made you really awesome. Like when you look back and you're like, hey, that wasn't that bad. Why was I always so shamed about this kind of stuff? And that sort of gives us also the um, skill set when we go into Venus, right? About our love and our badassness is could be even past lives, right? So you remember all of these skills, right? You weren't always necessarily somebody who is in the middle of society who was unrecognized, but maybe you were more important, you were transitional, you were necessary, right? So all of these things can remind you on Saturday that you are necessary, that you're a badass. And so go ahead and be that. Venus is going to be in retrograde until September 3rd, right? So you have a little bit of time to work on this. Really, you're going to be adjusting your finances. How are you spending money? How are you making money? How do you sort of readjust and allocate that money for what you really want, right? And this goes in that self-reliance thing, importance thing, right? What's going on is really fixing yourself, right? And this is just if you're feeling a little guilty about working on yourself, all this stuff, right? You know, the even the Western Christian understanding is love your neighbor as yourself. You have to love yourself before you can love your neighbor, right? And so if you don't love yourself, or you love yourself second, then what happens, right? There's this misordering of taking care of things, and then you for lack of a better word, you half-ass the other things that you do because you haven't taken yourself into account first, right? It's kind of like not getting enough sleep and then trying to run a triathlon, right? You've gypped everybody. So you'll be adjusting your finances and relationships, right? So relationships can go under some readjustment, right? If you're currently in one, those things you're just going to sort of take on a new flavor. Not necessarily a bad flavor, right? It's not like let's have a fight about, you know, something from 20 years ago. It's really more about a deepening, a reaffirmation, a reconnection, right? So that if it's become stagnant or routine, that it becomes different and what you got together for in the first place. Whew, that's a big Saturday. Go on date night, maybe. And then, blah, 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 blah. Don't start in, there we go. I was like, there's something in here that I really wanted to get to. Don't start any new relationships during this retrograde, right? So if you're talking to somebody and you're thinking, no, this is whatever, really sort of weave around making it official or sort of deciding until September 3rd. Just don't do it. It's okay. If they're meant to be, they'll wait for 3.5 weeks or whatever, however long that is, 6 weeks. I can't do math in my head. Cognitive decline because of the sun. It's all the sun's fault. So that's a good crutch that you can use for the week if you're feeling a little wonky. Moves us into Sunday, the 23rd. I'm just giving you all kinds of weird stuff today. Chiron goes into retrograde, right? And so Chiron is helping to heal those old wounds, right? So all of this old stuff you're bringing up, Chiron is really the healer of, right? And so when Chiron is helping us heal those things, it really sort of makes that transition easier. And how long is did I write that? I didn't write it down. Oh well, Chiron's gonna be in retrograde, I believe, until December. Yeah. Oh, and then also on Sunday, we transfer solar zodiac signs, right? So we're currently, I believe, in Cancer. We're gonna go to Leo, right? And so when we move into Leo, right, Cancer was really about the breast and the spleen, right? So nurturing and cleansing your blood, having energy. Leo is really about the heart and the nervous system that controls motor reactions, right? So the ability to jumpstart stuff, so to jump up quickly, to start a race, to continue a race, right? So that's, and then the heart to do it, right? So it's not necessarily about the physical. I mean, it is. It's a little bit about the physical part, but it's also about having the heart, right? When bravery, courage, right? The heart to continue, the heart to persevere. A lot of people talk about, when they're talking about persevering, they usually think about athletes that do such things, right? And some people that survive like horrific things and are survivors of something. But a lot of people in the metaphysical world, and then the sort of just physical wellness world, like David Goggins, right? And he's just like crazy, like keeps going and doesn't take no for an answer, and, you know, sort of pushes through runs, even though his feet are, you know, beat to all get out. So that's the kind of energy of Leo, right? If it's hard right now, if you're dealing with a lot of this transition stuff and it seems overwhelming and you're like disheartened, really Leo's on its way to help. And so Venus is actually retrograde in Leo. And so that sort of combination of the heart, the courage to be yourself and to readjust those love relationships and to sort of decide what you really want your finances to be instead of settling for what they are. That's the kind of energy that's coming on Sunday. So maybe not necessarily the day of rest. And then Monday and Tuesday is really going to be the energy of the let's see, I hit some buttons on the screen. Hope it didn't do anything weird. It just said, what? I was changing the page and all of a sudden something went up. I blame it on the sun. Anyway, Monday and Tuesday is really about the pre-shadow of what's coming up in August, which is the 8/8 Lionsgate portal. And really what that is, that's the alignment of the star Sirius with the sun, Orion's belt, and the earth, right? So it's that August alignment. And so that alignment is really going to bring in a lot of that energy. If you've studied any kind of metaphysics around Egypt and the power of the pyramids and the king's chamber really being associated with the heart center. And then, of course, we're in Leo, right? All of that energy of the Lion's Gate is really aligning for that stuff to be actionable, right? A lot of times what you're going to start to feel, and even with all this heart stuff that's going on, you're going to start to feel like your heart is getting downloads, right? So a lot of people, like during heart transplants, will have like memories of the person they got a heart from, right? So there's a lot of brain matter or memory matter, which is in the heart, right? And so when you get downloads into that's upgrades and sort of like deleting, like when you get a new iOS, right? So they remove some files that weren't working for you and they download in new ones, and then all of a sudden your operating system is allegedly faster. Sometimes it's not, but that's what's sort of happening with the heart. So it'll feel like it's getting downloads. Also feel like it's getting upgrades. Like all of a sudden you have more breath, you have more stamina, right? Your heart is going to really sort of jump out of your chest. That was so cliche. Anywho, that's what's going on this week. Look for, I guess it's another intense week of energy. But of course, if you have any questions or you need to work through any of that stuff, I'm here at the shop at New Dimensions Crystals in downtown Brenham, Texas. You can find me at newdimensionscrystals.com. And if you're in the area and you need to book an energy session to sort of just help you readjust or move and release some of this stuff through, you want to sit in the pyramid, you want to do breath work, all of that stuff has a little description on there. And of course, if you don't understand that description, you can send an email to contact@newdimensionscrystals.com and ask me some questions. And of course, like and subscribe on the YouTube and put your comments and your questions there. Maybe I can answer something that I didn't cover in this, or maybe I triggered some whole new line of thought for you. If that was the case, that'd be awesome. Until next time, everybody, many blessings.